Hello, this is Mr. Buffington from Simplify Academy, and today we are writing numeric expressions. We're going to take words and make them into expressions. First off, a couple of things to expect. We are going to talk about math words, some words that have math meaning, and then we're going to write expressions and we are going to practice. Let's look at the four major operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. We use some words to tell us that we're going to be doing these operations. With addition, we often hear the word sum. That means we're adding. The sum of two numbers is two numbers added together, and the sum is the result. Multiplication, we use the word product in the same way. Division, we would use a quotient. And subtraction, we often say difference. Those are the four main words that mean the result of doing this operation. We have some other words that also sometimes are used for these operations. For addition, we might say altogether or total. With subtraction, we may say less than or reduced by. Division, we might talk about equal groups or dividing something into half. Multiplication, we might say times or double or of. Of is kind of a special one. The way I've seen this used most often with fractions, like half of 12. That means 1/2 times 12. Anyway, the one that I am going to throw in here that sometimes means addition is the word and. I don't like that one, but sometimes it's used, so I want to prepare you in case you do see that, because sometimes when you see the word and, it does not mean addition. So that one's kind of a special case. Let's go ahead and get into the hardest part of this lesson, and that is the tricky phrases more than, less than. More than, less than are tough because they don't go in order. Let me show you what I mean. If you think about it, what does it mean to say 5 more than 6? It means that you start with 6 and then you add 5. So it says 5 more than 6, but you wouldn't write it 5 plus 6. You'd actually write it as 6 plus 5. With addition, that doesn't matter because 6 plus 5 is 11 and 5 plus 6 is 11. But the order does matter when it comes to subtraction. The less than. This is the number one mistake I see students making when they're writing word phrases. 5 less than 6. Think about everything I've said and how you might write that as an expression. Remember, it's like saying you start with 6 and you take away 5. So you have 5 less than 6. So we would write this as 6 minus 5. And the order is very important with subtraction. So keeping that in mind, we're going to move on to writing expressions. We'll start out with something basic and then make it a little more complex because I know you're capable of seeing some things that are more complex. First off, let's write an expression for the product of 5 and 2. Do you remember what product meant? Product is multiplication. So we are talking 5 times 2. That's the product of 5 and 2. If we go to 3 more than the product of 5 and 2, we're taking this to the next level. Because we're taking that first thing we did, product of 5 and 2, and then we're going 3 more than that. Practicing writing the more than at the end is a good thing to try out. So this would be 5 times 2, the product of 5 and 2, and then 3 more than that. Let's look at a similar example. The quotient of 24 and 4. The quotient of, oh my goodness, try that again, take 2. The quotient of 20 and 4, thank you. That would be written as 20 divided by 4. There it is, quotient of 20 and 4. Now we're going to take that same expression, quotient of 20 and 4, and then go 2 less than that amount. How would we write that as an expression? It's very similar to what we did in the previous question. We would write it as the quantity of 20 divided by 4, and then we would write minus 2 off of the end. So we take that quotient of 20 and 4, and then we do 2 less than it. Notice how the 2 is the very first word, but it's all the very last thing in the expression. That might be part of why it's confusing, because it's in the beginning of the word phrase, but at the end of the expression. Let's do some practice. Go ahead and write the expression for this. Double the sum of 12 and 14. Try that out. Try writing an expression for that. Take a look at it, think about it. Okay, the way that I would write this is like that. I take the sum of 12 and 14 and then I double it. If you said 2 times the quantity of 12 plus 14, that would be correct as well. It does need to have the parentheses for this one, because if they didn't have the parentheses, we would multiply first and then add. So it is important to have those parentheses in there, that grouping symbol that tells us we're first finding the sum and then we're going to double it. Here's another one. The product of 4 and 5 divided by 2. The product of 4 and 5 divided by 2. Here we go. 4 times 5 is the product of 4 and 5, and then we divide them by 2. So that's how I would write this one. The parentheses in this case are not necessary, because you would multiply first anyway, but I like to put them in just to give us a little bit of clarity. Let's do one more example of writing an expression. I want you to try this one out. It's kind of worded in a weird way, but I think you can do it. The difference between 4 3s and 2 3s. 4 3s and 2 3s? If you're thinking to yourself, this one's complex, it really is, but once you see the answer, it'll probably make sense. So let's go to that. There's what we have. The difference means you're subtracting, but what are you subtracting? You're subtracting 4 3s minus 2 3s, or 4 times 3 minus 2 times 3. The parentheses are not necessary in this, but I like using them because it helps show that I'm taking one thing, 4 3s, and subtracting another thing, 2 3s. And while this seems silly right now, exercising with this idea is going to help when we go into future lessons about variables. And don't let that vocab scare you. Just trust me, this is something you will see again. Try it out. The sum of 3 6s and 4 6s. After seeing my example, try that one out. Did your answer look something like that? 3 times 6 plus 4 times 6? Or 3 6s plus 4 6s? Sum means you're adding, and those other phrases tell us what we're adding. 3 6s and 4 6s. All right? There we go. One way to really get this idea in our minds and really solid is to do what we call backwards practicing, or starting with the answer and kind of moving backwards. So I'm going to, instead of telling you a word phrase and asking you to write an expression, I'm going to give you an expression and ask you to write a word phrase. Now, word phrases can be different. So yours might not be exactly what mine is, but here's some practice. Try writing out some words that might help you to say this. If I say it, then that'll give it away. This is what I wrote down. 2 times the sum of 5 and 9. Okay. 2 times the sum of 5 and 9. You might have said 2 times the quantity of 5 and 9. You might have said double the sum of 5 and 9. Any of those would be fine. All right. What you wouldn't want to say is 2 times 5 plus 9, because that would be written without those parentheses, and so you wouldn't find the sum first and then multiply it or double it. All right. Now we have this one, 4 times 6 minus 7. I just said it in a way. Oh my goodness. You could write 4 times 6 minus 7, but try figuring out a different way of writing that word phrase. This one I wrote specifically so that we would try out that whole less than idea. 7 less than the product of 4 and 6. Notice the 7 less than means 7 minus 7 at the end. And that one is tricky to wrap our heads around. So I wanted us to practice one that looked like that. Couple things to remember. Read each word phrase carefully. One really important thing I want to know is this block orangish yellow or yellowish orange? Not entirely sure. And I want you to watch for more than and for less than. Those are the tricky ones that I've seen students it trips them up a little bit. I hope that video was helpful for you. Make sure to complete the worksheet and take the quiz. Have a wonderful day.